It's the Draft Fellows coming at you live. Kyle and Andrew breaking down the drive. Prospects to roster, we got the flow. First round picks to the ones you don't know. Talk about the combine, skills on display. Who's rising up and who's falling away. Roster building like a GM in the zone. Kyle Fellows, Andrew Mertig, they own the phone.
Hey, welcome back to the Draft Fellows podcast. I'm Andrew Mertig. That is not Kyle Fellows. And together we normally are the Draft Fellows, but make sure you're checking out our channel on YouTube or your the audio version on your favorite podcasting platform. Tonight, I'm actually joined by Dusty Evely, a true football savant. And if you're not familiar with Dusty, and like possibly some of our non-Packers fans are not, you should be checking out his work because he provides brilliant film insight that I would say us mere mortals can barely comprehend. And like, that's one of the cool things that I love about this community of people who talk about football, because there's a really large spectrum, right? And so on one hand, I think there's people like Kyle and I that love talking roster building, draft, kind of that like nerdy stuff. And then there's other people that talk about the actual game breakdowns, which is a different form of nerdy stuff, but really, really important. And I think bringing those two things together sometimes can be really interesting. So welcome to the show, Dusty.
Thanks. Excited to be here. I'm with you. The spectrum of that is fascinating. You guys doing the draft stuff. My go-to is always, we've got a dude who just looks at the cap. We've got Ken Engels, who's just like, if you want however you want football covered, you can find a way to have it covered. So I have learned so much from so many other people. Intro is way too kind. I honestly didn't think I'd ever be on the show because I don't really do a whole lot with the draft. So I'm excited that we found a way to talk a little ball. That's exciting.
Well, I just like to talk to you, period. And then, corrupt your pure football takes with some of my nonsense. So that is really important to me.
That's important to me as well.
Today's show is going to be all about quarterbacks. So we are going to be taking a look at the quarterbacks around the NFL, team by team, and taking a look at like who may be in the market for a quarterback come the 2026 offseason. Because I think this sets up the 2025 regular season very well. We know that there's going to be some surprises along the way, but I think if we went back 12 months ago, we could pretty accurately predict what teams might be in the market, with one or two exceptions to that rule. And I think this is a good way to start as we begin talking about this 2026 quarterback class, which is like very celebrated. You may not know that, Dusty, but people are loving the college quarterbacks this year.
I know a name.
There's one very famous name that I'm sure you're referring to. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but obviously a lot of that to come. But I wanted to get your opinion on where teams are from a quarterback perspective. And so we're going to get things kicked off in the AFC East. And I think team number one, we can probably safely assume the Bills are pretty set at quarterback for the foreseeable future.
I'd say that's probably true. That seems true. Unless Josh Allen's legs fall off, I think he's good.
And even then, I probably would still consider him like a top 8 quarterback. And so the New England Patriots, just skipping down one, I think Drake May, pretty safe to say what he showed during his rookie year, make sure that he is pretty much the plan for the foreseeable future. But then we can talk about the Miami Dolphins and New York Jets. So where would you like to start?
Dolphins are up higher on the list. Let's talk Dolphins.
Awesome. So, of course, they give a huge contract to Tua. He is their plan. He would be the ideal situation for the Dolphins going forward. But head injuries, very scary. There's no way to prognosticate how that's going to go. So do you see the Dolphins as a team that would be in the QB market?
I think they should be. I mean, beyond that, so it's Tua, and then it's non-serious behind them, right? Like Zach Wilson, Quinn Ewers, and Brett Gabbert. One other thing I loved about this entire exercise is how many names I'm like, oh yeah, that dude's kicking it. That dude's doing something. Like, that's fun. I like all the names coming up. To me, I think the bigger thing, whether or not you believe in Tua, I think he's very good for the system he's in for McDaniel, like kind of that point and shoot, that quick release, all that RPO stuff. Man, this might be McDaniel's last go. Like, there's a chance that if this team bottoms out, and I think we've seen, I mean, not to say that Tua's bad outside of anywhere else, but he's in ideal situation now. And I don't know that he's he's not like your go-to. We don't want to look for someone else starter if McDaniel's not your dude there. So I think if this is McDaniel's last hurrah, and by week 5 we may know that, I think they need to start looking. Like I don't know that Tua. You look at him, like you mentioned, his health stuff. Even beyond that, I don't know that you look at him with or without McDaniel, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is a go-to guy. I think it's not. You gave like 3 categories we're looking at. It's not like a definitely looking, but I think you need to start peaking. I think if you're the Dolphins.
Yeah, I would categorize them as like a maybe, right? Like if everything goes perfectly and they have a really good season, they make the playoffs, and McDaniel is definitely back, Tua stays healthy. Yeah, ride with that going forward. You're not going to invest a high pick. But I do think, there's a lot of variables that are not altogether out of question that would make Tua very replaceable.
Yeah. 100%.
One of the scary things about having to pay a quarterback that probably falls in that like 8 to 12 category in the NFL, you have to pay them the premium price, whatever the latest biggest quarterback contract is. You have to pay them that, but then you're sort of stuck in this interesting dilemma of figuring out how to proceed going forward. And the Jets, hey, they have moved on from the Aaron Rodgers situation, and they're going to ride out Justin Fields this year, who is one of my 2 reclamation projects. So where are you thinking the Jets are heading at quarterback?
Man, I think you got to be looking. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a huge Fields guy. I wasn't a huge Fields guy of him coming out of college, and he's not shown. I mean, he was in a bad situation in Chicago, but even then, even when things were okay, like he's still a dynamic athlete. Like when he hits that second gear in the open field, it's insane how fast that man is, and he's got a gun for an arm. I don't like his processing, and I don't like his accuracy, and I've not seen signs of that getting better. And again, not the best situations that he's been in. I don't like Arthur Smith's offense, so it's not like he was in, and he wasn't even given like a real good chance in Pittsburgh. But before Wilson got healthy, he was, and at best he was fine. I think that's kind of his ceiling. So I think if you're the Jets and behind him, it's Tyrod Taylor is the number 2, and then a couple other dudes. Like if he hits, you've got your guy. There's another one like within the week 4. I think you got to be looking, but I think right now you have to assume Justin Fields is not your guy going forward. Like you have to assume that we have to look next year, unless he proves you otherwise this year. I think
that's exactly where I am too. I would have the Jets as in the market for a quarterback regardless, because even if Fields has a pretty good season, they're going to have to pay him like, what Tampa had to give Baker Mayfield after the one good year.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Jets are in that position. And I also doubt his abilities to succeed in an offense that's largely Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and like a bunch of question marks. So I do like that offensive line. So maybe he, gets some better protection than he's had historically. But yeah, that's a big question mark. And we can slide over the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson and Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow are pretty safe. So we could probably just skip right to the Cleveland Browns.
My notes for this one just said this is about the grimmest quarterback situation. I made a spreadsheet and I've got a column for each quarterback, right? This is the only one I had to go to QB5 for. They have 5 quarterbacks on their roster. It's Joe Flacco, 40-year-old Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, who I don't think is much younger, right? It's like he's an old rookie. He's got to be 27, I think, at this point. Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and Deshaun Watson. Unless you really, really like, no one really likes Kenny Pickett. Like, we've seen enough Kenny Pickett. He's a dude who, in 5 years, if we do this exercise again, I'm gonna be like, oh, cool, Kenny Pickett's still kicking around. His career is like back up. Unless you believe in Dylan Gabriel, which I do not, or Shedeur Sanders, which I don't, or Deshaun Watson, which, I mean, I don't want to get into whether or not he should be on a football team at all right now, but based on just on the field, unplayable, and then I don't think he's going to be playing this year anyway. There's not like a path forward for them to be good unless they truly believe in Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel, which if they did, they would have drafted them before they did. So I think they've got to be looking. Like, of all the teams, I think this is the team that very much is like, we got to solve this, man. We got to figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you're stuck in this weird situation because the Browns have given out more cash than any other team for like 4 consecutive years. They're really up against it in a cap situation. So they need to draft a young quarterback, but instead they invested 2 like pretty solid resources in the 3rd and a 5th round pick in 2 quarterbacks that I think are kind of long shots. And then, you mentioned Kenny Pickett. When you said Blaine Gabbert earlier, that was like what Kenny Pickett will
Brett
be in
Gabbert,
5 years.
I think. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
is there a different Gabbert?
I think it's his brother. I think it's Blaine Gabbert's brother.
All right. Well, I'm learning new things today too. But I think Blake Gabbert might still be kicking around. But that's my Kenny Pickett comp of like this guy who's just going to be a backup forever, should never see the field. And Flacco's their best option if they want to win this year. But is that important? And do you want to invest those snaps in a 40-year-old quarterback? Like this is a weird situation.
It's weird is the nicest thing you can say about this situation. It's grim, dude. It's real grim.
All right, and we transition to another really fun one, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers. And then they have Mason Rudolph as a backup. They did just draft Will Howard, but that's a 6th-round pick. So, yes, I assume.
Yeah, you have to, right? Like, unless who are the other guys? You got Skylar Thompson in there as well. We know who Mason Rudolph is, unless you really like Will Howard, which I think there's some cool stuff you can do based on what he did in college. I think there's some cool stuff you can do with him, like his physicality, his legs. I don't know if Arthur Smith is the dude to do that. It is Arthur Smith there. So I don't know if that's the best mix there. You've got to, and that's another one too, where even if Will Howard hits, where'd he go this past? Like they didn't draft him high, right? They don't expect him to hit. So
right.
And they've been chasing that. They've been chasing quarterback there's another team that's been chasing quarterback for a while. They're in Aaron Rodgers. They had Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. They need to find something. So this is a team that like every year needs to be drafting a quarterback, right? Until like something hits.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked Will Howard too. The most damning thing to Howard is that his offensive coordinator from Ohio State is now the offensive coordinator of the Raiders, and the Raiders passed on him a bunch of times in the draft. So you would have hoped that his college OC would be pounding the table for his guy at some point. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I could see being really successful this year, but that's obviously not a future plan. So I would firmly put the Steelers in the yes bucket along with the Browns. And then we go over to the AFC South. I think we can probably skip 3 of these teams: the Texans with CJ Stroud, the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, and the Titans with Cam Ward. Are you on board with all of those being no's?
Oh yeah, 100%. I actually looked for a second. I was like, maybe Trevor, and then I looked, and he's got like 4 years before they can get out of that deal. Like, no, okay, no, he's Trevor's there. Trevor's in.
His contract is massive. That's an interesting conversation going forward for sure. So then we get to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, and this is going to be the duel between Anthony Richardson's health and Daniel Jones, and this is going to get me in so much trouble later on. My sneaky prediction is that Daniel Jones has a Baker Mayfield like career resurgence this year.
I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be that much because I don't really like Daniel Jones like that. But I mean, I do like. Do you know who the OC for the Colts is? By the way, this is a name
No.
I had not heard in a while. It's Jim Bob Cooter is the OC for the Colts this year. I mean, Steichen's the head coach, so he's going to do in that offense. I like Steichen a lot. I wouldn't be shocked if Jones has a decent year this year. I mean, the year that he was at his best was under Dable, that first year, and they kind of schemed up. He didn't have to do a whole lot. Steichen is real good with like drawing up offensive plays, dealing with running quarterbacks, all that stuff. If you can just be halfway consistent, and Jones can be, they need to look for a quarterback. Like, I don't think I'm not with you, and I think must be lower on Daniel Jones. I don't see any career resurgence here. I think at best he's a dude who like will come in and win a game or two for you. It would be cool, but even if another thing is, even if he has a good year, I think Steichen's probably on his way out. I don't know that he survives this year. I like him a lot. I don't know if he's been a very good head coach. Even if Jones has at best like a halfway decent year, I think Steichen's out, and the next guy's gonna want to pick his own quarterback. So I would say, I guess that's a different answer though, right? Because they should be looking, but I don't know if they will be, because this current crew will not be looking. They will not be the ones probably in charge of that search, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I would say it's still a yes. That they're going to be the market for a quarterback. And despite my ridiculousness with suddenly liking Daniel Jones after not liking him his whole career, I still think they're very much in the market.
Off-season brain, dude. Like that's an insane take.
This is too much dynasty fantasy football for one person who's like, who could be good this year that is available for nothing.
Yeah. That's not a bad
All
pick
right.
for that. It's really not a bad pick for that.
I think that's an offense that, yeah, like you mentioned, it can be very quarterback friendly, and they do have some interesting weapons, although I don't know if they have the like dynamism at wide receiver to really take that next step. But certainly, good young tight end, Jonathan Taylor. Can Michael Pittman ever have the career resurgence that I keep expecting? So,
well, I'm blanking on. I covered them last year too. I should know this. The wide receiver out of Texas, the rookie wide receiver they had last year.
yeah, this is really embarrassing. He wears number 10, and he's really fast.
AD Mitchell. AD Mitchell.
Yes, correct.
Who like just decides not to run around. Like he's so fast, but he just decides he doesn't want to run around at times. So it's kind of one of those. He could be a big play guy, but he just doesn't want to play sometimes. So who knows how that goes.
So AFC West also relatively straightforward. The Broncos have Bo Nix, the Chiefs have Mahomes, and the LA Chargers have Justin Herbert. So I think those are all safely in the not looking for a starter at this moment. But the Las Vegas Raiders are a really interesting one, bringing in Geno Smith, who of course is very familiar with Pete Carroll, but is an older quarterback. But on the other hand, just got some money. So where are you thinking with the Raiders?
Okay, Raiders, I think they should be looking because I think they can get out of Geno within a year. He's in his mid-30s. This career resurgence has been awesome, but I mean, behind him it's Aiden O'Connell, Cam Miller, Carter Bradley. Part of me just keeps waiting for Geno Smith to fall off a cliff because he was just gone for so long. He's been really good, but I think you need to be looking. I don't know, like really hard looking and like we absolutely need to go get a quarterback no matter what, but they need to be putting feelers out. And honestly, and maybe this is hot takey because he had a decent rookie year, I think the Broncos kind of the same way, and maybe that's because I don't really believe in Bo Nix a whole lot, but I think he's a guy that maybe next year we see that rookie, that some of the numbers he put up his rookie year, he's not as good as maybe we kind of thought, and maybe they start looking a little more. So that's not a definitely looking, but that's if things start falling a little bit for Bo Nix, if he doesn't take that step, if some of the things fall back to earth that like probably should have fallen back to earth last year, maybe you start keeping your eyes open a bit.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting one. Love bringing the heat on that. And yeah, to your point about the Raiders, I think this is an offense where Geno can be successful in that they should have a really strong running game. So, play action should be there. He's got Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers is pretty solid. We don't know who the other receivers are going to be. Maybe it's rookie Jack Besh, but that's going to be an opportunity for him to show they still got something left in the tank. But how much do you want to invest in a 35, 36-year-old quarterback when you know that your team's really sort of in a rebuilding process? So I think they are definitely in the market.
Yeah.
I will add the Denver Broncos to the maybe list and remind you of this at some future date. The disrespect to Bo Nix.
Thank you. I think I'll live, but thank you.
I think this is the easiest division in football. NFC East. Dak with the Cowboys. Just based on the amount of money that he is making, I don't think they can look, although they keep retooling the backup position behind him. The New York Giants just traded up to take Jackson Dart in the first round, so I would expect that he will be given the reins in 2026. The Eagles have Jalen Hurts. The Commanders have Jaden Daniels. Anything you object to there?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't really love Jackson Dart, and I could see that. That's one of those guys who, like, pretty early you could tell whether he's going to be good or not. I think so. That's a one maybe they keep their eyes open, but like you said, they probably will not. So I would imagine, barring injury, it seems pretty clean.
And you were talking about this a little bit earlier, but like the Giants have a GM and a head coach both on the hot seat.
Yeah,
Jackson Dart is their attempt to stay in their roles. Don't know that he's going to play very much early. So, if he looks bad in the second half of the season and then it's a completely new regime, would the Giants considering pull the Josh Rosen and just move on right away? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I keep in mind. Honestly, not to get too far ahead, that's one of my things with the Bears as well. Like anytime you got a potential new regime coming in or a new regime has already come in, they didn't pick that guy. We've seen this for the Bears before, right? Like you've got this. All right, it's not my problem. They took Jackson Dart. Like I'm not here for that. So I wouldn't be shocked if they are looking. But if Joe Shane and Brian Dable remain, they probably will not, just because we picked this guy. We have to make it work. Like that's probably what would have to be if they end up staying there.
All right, so then we move on to the NFC North, and we have the aforementioned Bears, the Lions with Jared Goff, the Packers with Jordan Love, and the Vikings bringing in J.J. McCarthy. So I think there's the potential for a few hot takes here, but I will let you go first with this Caleb Williams stuff.
I mean, so Caleb Williams he was highly drafted, number one overall. Like we know that. He looked unplayable at times last year, and that wasn't all his fault. His deep ball looked awful, like historically bad. I know, at least for the first half of the season. You got bright, shiny new, head coach coming in, Ben Johnson. I'll just put this out here. I am not convinced Ben Johnson is going to be a good head coach. He seems like a guy who could be a very good offensive coordinator, but from a personality standpoint, I don't know if he's going to work. So we'll see on that front. But this is another one where the Bears do this weird leapfrog thing where you've now brought in, you've left the GM, you've kept him, you brought in the new head coach. We could have something next year where Caleb Johnson's then passed. Or Caleb Williams. I don't want to say Caleb Johnson. He's past year 2. He's going into year 3. You now have a head coach going into his second year, a newly hired GM who did not hire the coach or the quarterback. And now he's like, okay, well, I don't really like this quarterback. Like maybe we don't know. Like, I don't want to say the uncoachable thing for Williams because we've seen him play well in college. How is he going to take to the system? How's Ben Johnson going to take to coaching? It could be Williams is very, very good, and Ben Johnson just kind of struggles a little bit as a rookie head coach. He's got a really young offensive. I think his OC is like 27, 28. He was like a tight ends coach in Denver.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really young, like not just the coach, but a young staff. And those guys kind of learn on the fly. Like that can burn down in a hurry. I know we saw that with Denver with Nate Hackett was out there. I mean, that was its own kind of special thing, but that was a guy who maybe wasn't ready to be head coach. We know he wasn't ready to be head coach, but the staff kind of wasn't ready either. So it could not be Caleb Williams' fault. But if this ends up not being a great season for him, they've got some weapons there, but they had some weapons there last year as well. And it doesn't go well for him, you could have, again, maybe a new GM, and then the head coach is like, I want my guy. Like, this isn't the guy. I wasn't here when we drafted him. I want my guy. So I would not be shocked if the Bears are looking next year.
Yeah, when you said Denver Broncos, I thought you were going to say Josh McDaniels in his first tenure as a head coach, because that was a really similar situation, right? Like he is the hotshot offensive coordinator in the NFL. He's surefire, can't miss head coach, and then he flames out really quickly. And not to say that is exactly what's going to happen with Ben Johnson, but the signs of risk are there. I think with Caleb Williams, he was my 3rd overall quarterback in last year's draft class because I thought he was a slow processor. And there's all sorts of evidence of that in year 1. So take that, people who gave me all sorts of heat on social media. But I think like Ben Johnson, that has to be priority 1, right? Like, how can I know we improve the offensive line, you still can't hold the ball forever. So how can we speed up that trigger? And that's not an easy thing with young quarterbacks. So I do like that call out as well. I'm going to go with the Lions here as a maybe. And I think Jared Goff's future as their starter is pretty secure, at least for, the next couple of years, but they need to start looking for a replacement plan eventually, because 1, I don't think Goff's play is necessarily super sustainable. Losing his offensive coordinator is going to be a challenge, but this team's depth just keeps getting eaten away at, and there's going to be some young stars that are going to start to dissipate around him, and I think they need to prioritize paying some of their younger superstar players instead of like a pretty good quarterback. And as he ages, I don't know that his game necessarily ages super gracefully either. So I would love to see them address the quarterback somewhat early next year in the draft.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was looking at that quarterback room. I did not look at the ages, but Hendon Hooker is like, I think 2 years younger than Goff, if I'm not mistaken. Like, cause he was drafted like 27, 28, something like that. So
Yeah.
I do think they need to be looking. I've never been the biggest Goff fan. He's turned out to be a way better quarterback than I thought. But I mean, to your point, he needs things. I mean, you talked about Caleb Williams being a slow processor. Goff, tremendous processor, great footwork. His pocket presence has gotten tremendous in his time, like basically since the Rams when he came over to the Lions. He's been very, very good at that. Oh, he's always had a good arm. Honestly, I think he ages pretty well. I just don't know how much he lifts the offense in terms of like what he can do, what he can give you. Like that style of quarterback, that statuesque quarterback, it's kind of going out of style at the moment. You needed something a little more because you need things to be perfect around that dude. And if the protection isn't great, and they lost Ragnow this past year, and if the offense starts to falter a little, again, Ben Johnson's out every time. So the OC is John Morton. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, Johnny Morton, like he was a good receiver for the Lions. Like, no, it's not. This is like a 50-year-old white man named John Morton coming in at OC. At some point, that starts to take a hit, and if your quarterback needs things to be really good around him anyway, and then those things start to falter, yeah, I think they need to start. I think they need to start looking a couple of years ago, and they didn't, and that was fine. I mean, it's done very well for them, but I think it's time. I think they need to start looking.
I haven't thought about Johnny Morton, the wide receiver, in a long time.
Every time someone mentions John Morton, I'm like, yeah, all right, ex-player. Like, nope, different John Morton. All right.
Maybe you can bring in Brett Perriman as an assistant coach.
Here we go. Now we're cooking.
All
Where's
right.
Herman Moore at? Where are you at, Herman?
Oh,
Moore?
wait. I pressed forward too fast. I did want to talk just really quick. Green Bay Packers. I think Jordan Love is pretty safe. Yeah. We would like to see continued ascension because I thought last year it stagnated a little bit, but I do think a lot of that had to do with injury. The Vikings, I will say this. I think JJ McCarthy has a lot of runway. If he gets hurt again, I do think the Vikings need to seriously consider drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I mean, it feels like one of those they probably won't because it took him first round, right? Like that was a high pick when they took him. I don't think they will, but I'm with you. There seems like there's been some weirdness around McCarthy, like coming in, like not now, but before even mini camps or anything. Some of the way he was talked about was a little strange. He is kind of a slight fella, so I wouldn't be shocked if they're looking. But as of now, this is another one that quarterback room, man, it's Brett Rippon and Sam Howell behind him. So it gets rough in a hurry, but I think he needs to come out of the gate firing. But I don't think they're going to be looking unless things go bad.
Absolutely. Then moving over to the NFC South, we have the Atlanta Falcons. They took Michael Penix and they've invested a whole lot in him. I assume he is pretty safe. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have Baker Mayfield, and his contract is pretty solidified now. So on those two teams, you pretty settled that they're good for the future.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Penix is iffy. I mean, they that's another one. They put a lot into him, so they're probably not looking. And he had some good plays down the stretch last year, but I don't know, man. I still don't know if that's a guy like you want to build a franchise around necessarily in terms of like what we saw in college. Even some of the stuff we saw last year, like it wasn't smooth. Not that you expected to be as a rookie, but like it wasn't smooth. It was just better than like immobile Kirk Cousins. So I didn't see a whole lot last year that made me think this is 100% our guy going forward. But based on what they paid for him, yeah, they're probably not going to be looking.
The one thing I would say is it would be an absolute PR nightmare for the general manager to have paid Kirk Cousins what they paid Kirk Cousins, move on, and then have to move on from the guy you drafted in the top 10.
You piss off your starter, and then you just then the guy you traded for is unplayable, and the starter is still on the roster, like Kirk Cousins is still around.
I do want to say with the Carolina Panthers, I have a maybe here. I loved what I saw from Bryce Young late in the season. However, his deep ball did not improve whatsoever. And that is cause for concern in the long term. And also, if they were that quick to pull him and the play was that inconsistent just 10 months ago, I think this is a situation that we need to continue to monitor and not necessarily just say like Bryce Young is good.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. Year two of what Canales did with him. Like he took some big steps down the stretch. And so I could see halfway through the season being like, all right, but even then it's got to come down to the size, right? Like he is just so slight that however good you feel about his progression, can he stand up? Like he's going to be, this is third year, right? Third year in the league.
Yep.
Can he stand up to like a full season? Can he be a 10-year guy for us? Or is this a guy we need to start looking at? Can he give us good play now we need to start looking for the next one. So I'm excited to see what he does. He had one of my favorite plays of the year last year. He had like the no look or the look away throw. He chucked that post and then is like Steph Curry celebrating with his back turned before the ball's caught. Tremendous moment. I love that from him. I really hope he's good, but I think they need to at least start poking around. I also think the Bucks, man, isn't Baker? I think he's got 1 or 2 years left on that deal. He's 30. He just lost his OC. We've seen Baker tank when OCs leave. So I wouldn't be if he comes out of the gate a little sluggish. I mean, the Bucks may be in the market, but that's a if this goes a certain way. But they probably will not be. But it's one to keep under my hat, I think.
Yeah, the transition from Canales to Liam Cohen was fine last year. Worked out really well for them, but that's not just a given. I know Baker's overcome some offensive coordinator changes in recent history, but you're right. Looking back a little bit further.
Yeah, well, Canales to Cohen, like Cohen's a genius, so that that's one thing. But he's under now. Yeah. I looked up his name. It's Josh Grizzard. I don't know who Josh Grizzard is. His OC is now Josh Grizzard.
Yeah, the Grizzard. Course,
the Grizz,
Yeah. So I should mention that outside of football, Dusty also a massive fan of horror movies. You do some really cool like reviews and stuff, and so that brings me to the New Orleans Saints quarterback situation.
I said the word grim earlier. That's double. It's not quite as bad as the Brown situation, but brother, it's not pretty.
So we're relying on some combination of Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck. That's not how his name should be pronounced.
I've listened to 1,000 times. It's Shuck, but I always thought it was like Shao.
It should be Show or something.
Yeah.
I refuse. That's why every time I have to say it very slowly because it doesn't make sense. So this is a team that's absolutely looking for a quarterback.
Okay, Shuck is. What was he, 26 or something? He's drafted. Like, he's old. Yeah. And I mean, I was going to say, if you watch the tape, Andrew, I know you did. That man doesn't want to be hit. Like, at all, that dude doesn't want to be hit. He would see him. He had some of my favorite plays from last year. He's like running to not be hit and then underhanding a ball to no one in particular because he doesn't want to be hit. That's not working out well. Rattler was like highly touted, but not great in the NFL. At best, he's been below average, even as best. And then it's Jake Hayner, like, who looks like that's the Blue Steel looking guy every single time. I'm excited to see what Kellen Moore does. Like, maybe you get a bump out of Rattler this year if Rattler's the dude. But man, like, I think even if Shuck like blows you away, he's 26 and a rookie, and I just think there's issues there. And Rattler, maybe you can talk yourself into him, but there's also 2 years already telling us that he's bad. So they absolutely have to be looking.
Yeah, I think the Saints are in a position where they're hoping that one of these two is good enough that it gets them through whatever rebuild disaster is coming eventually. So if they do choose to tear it down to the studs in 2026, maybe you don't draft a rookie quarterback because the supporting cast is going to be terrible. So maybe you just go with a Tyler Shuck in that case, try to survive the year, and then you get a high pick in 2027. And
you're not even looking for good play. You're looking for who's mentally strong enough to take what's coming. This
is going to be David Carr on the Texans. Bad. Gosh. So we're going to go over to the NFC West then, and I would say the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray, that's a really interesting situation. So I guess we could start there.
I mean, I don't know for sure. He's played really well last year. I've got them as maybe looking, like, depending on how it goes. But I did not. I was going to look at his contract. I did not look at his contract. I like what Petzing's doing out there. That was a better offense than I thought it was going to be. I think we know what we've got with Kyler. I think we've got some really good play with some really inconsistent play. And I don't know. I changed my mind. I went to maybe looking. I think they probably should be looking. Again, not like you're not hammering it. It's not like we need to get a guy, but if you like a guy that falls to you, like, you're taking him. I think you're at least scouting if you're the Cardinals this year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I love what the Cardinals did on defense this year, and I think Kyler is a significantly better quarterback playing with a lead than trying to come from behind. He tends to do a little bit less hero ball. And so I do think that he will have a good season, but I think if that's not up to par, this is a team that could sneakily be looking for a quarterback going forward. I'd say the Rams with Matthew Stafford are a definite yes at this point.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, he's like threatening retirement every year. Yeah, he's 100% need to look for someone. It's behind him, it's Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett. Like, yeah, you need to be looking for someone else.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe they like Garoppolo enough to be sort of the like transitional starter, but I definitely think that they need to be looking every single
If
year.
nothing else, that's the dude. Like, you're looking to get better than that. If he's your dude, if he's your guy still, yeah.
Absolutely. This is like the Packers with Favre before they drafted Aaron Rodgers, where every single offseason they were connected to some quarterback prospect. And then the San Francisco 49ers, they just paid Brock Purdy. So I believe they are out of the market. The Seahawks, this is an interesting one because I changed from a yes to a maybe to a no. And this is why. Tell me where you disagree. But they paid Sam Darnold, but they have an easy out after 1 year. So if Sam Darnold doesn't work out, he can be gone. But they also invested in Jalen Milroe in the draft. And I think like they probably would want to at least give him an opportunity if Darnold isn't the answer.
Milroe's a dart throw for me. Like they put something in there, but I don't know if they're looking. That if that hits, that hits. Like that's going to be. I hope he does because that'd be so much fun. I think they should be looking. I mean, and I'm very much of the mind. Like I think a lot of people, certainly before last year, that Sam Darnold just isn't very good. Like he'll give you some good play. He'll give you some good stretches. But we even saw down the stretch like. He wasn't good down the stretch for the Vikings. And I think that's indicative of the player he is. He'll give you some good stretches, coach him up a little, get some good pieces around him. He's got a live arm. He can move. Like he can be good. If you're basing your offense around and your future thought process around, we don't need a quarterback, we need Sam Darnold, you're out of a job pretty quick is my thought. So they got Drew Lock sitting behind him. Again, the Milroe thing, like, I think that'd be awesome if he hits, and I love the dart throw. I think that's really, really cool. I'm not banking on that. Like that's, and certainly not even like this year, maybe not even next year, like, and maybe that's a guy who never hits. It's an Anthony Richardson thing, but like more raw than Anthony Richardson was in terms of who he is now versus what you can dream on. So I think Milroe's a guy, if you hope he's going to be your starter, he's a guy who gets you fired. He could get you fired or you're a legend. I don't think there's any in between. I think as an aside, these last two teams, the Niners and the Seahawks, both OCs are a Kubiak. We've got Clay Kubiak with San Francisco, and we got Clint Kubiak with the Seahawks, which is just too many Kubiaks running around, Andrew.
There's a bunch of them, right? Like I always think of their dad and that great head of hair in Denver and then Houston.
Handsome man.
It's unfortunate for those of us who may not have as much hair.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Wanted to go with a quick recap. And so the teams we said definitely yes on: the Jets, the Browns, the Steelers, the Colts, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Rams. And then there's a whole bunch of like maybe to probably recommend. And that's the Dolphins, Lions, Panthers, Giants, Broncos. I'm not taking credit for that one. Bears, also not taking credit for that one. Cardinals and Seahawks. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 teams. Almost half the league we've identified as potentially in the market for quarterbacks.
Seems high. That seems high.
That's a pretty accurate summary of the NFL. But we know like one or two of those situations that it'll solve itself. Maybe it's not Daniel Jones as I predicted. Maybe it's not Justin Fields, but somebody will step up and sort of fill in a role.
Drew Lock, I agree. Yeah.
There you go. Whoever your favorite flavor of ice cream is this week. So we can, whether we're saying like there's the 8 teams that said yes or the 7 teams that we would say probably, there could be more than that because there's always like unforeseen injuries, could be due to something else, a contract issue, somebody surprise retiring like Derek Carr. But you look at this is considered a really strong draft class. We know nothing at this point, but for right now, we have optimism that a player like Drew Aller from Penn State or Carson Beck, Miami, Clay Klubnik from Clemson, Sam Levitt from Arizona State, Arch Manning from Texas, Garrett Nussmeier of LSU, Lenore Sellers from South Carolina, Fernando Mendoza, Indiana, John Mateer, Oklahoma. These are all players that people are really high on. Some of them are going to flake out. Some aren't going to come out for the draft. And like to supplement that, there's probably a sleeper to somewhere around college football that's going to jump up into the top of the draft conversation. And then there's some intriguing backups to keep your eyes on. My favorite is Tyson Bagent in Chicago. I think he is a potential future starter for somebody. In fact, if I was a team like the Saints or the Browns, I would have much rather invested a early day 3 pick into trading for Tyson Bagent than drafting some of the players they did. But I guess it's not up to me. Honorable mention, somebody like Malik Willis with the Packers. I think there are backups around the league that could intrigue some teams to signing free agent contracts to make them starters. But I think this helps us formulate what those major quarterback storylines are going to be going forward, which is going to shape a lot of the conversations that Kyle and I have leading up into the start of the regular season and really throughout the fall. So super appreciate you joining us, Dusty.
This was fun. Like I said, it was a fun. I typed all of them in. I typed the head coach, OC, all the quarterbacks, typed them in, and then I made my call on a spreadsheet. It was fun just typing up like, oh, that dude. I'm glad he's still in the league. I'm glad Marcus Mariota's still backing up. I love Marcus Mariota. That's great. Sam Hartman's kicking around. Boy, that's weird. Easton Stick is still in the league. It was a very fun to do, if nothing else, than to see like, oh, hey, look at that guy. And also to be reminded that Johnny Morton is not an OC. That was something else I was reminded.
He is not 87 for the Lions. So where can people find your stuff?
I'm on social media over at Dusty Evely at Blue Sky, and then I write supposed to be a couple times a week. Right now it's about once a week at Acme Packing Company. Do something, try X's and O's related is generally what I try to do. So I'm working on something now. And Wednesday on Pack a Day with Sarah Kelleher and Steve Perhatch.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the show, and we will be previewing a lot more of the 2026 draft content in the coming weeks and coming months. And from the draft room to the gridiron, the Draft Fellows got you covered. Until next time, stay tuned and stay in the game.
Kyle got the insight, Andrew brings the heat. Breaking down the roster every single week. Catch us on the podcast, we coming through your speakers. Top picks for practice squad, we got the seekers. Team dynamics, contracts, and the trades. From the draft day excitement to the accolades. Draft fellows on the track, we gone strong. Analyze the plays, we can't be wrong. From the 40-yard dash to the longest throw. We talking pro ball, yeah, you know.